live.
Where's Ray?
He's not, I don't think he's joining. I'll explain after the session, but he's not joining tonight.
Oh,
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Girl time.
Girl talk. No, I was kidding.
I'm so privileged. I'm so privileged. What's going on, Facebook fam, YMA family? Listen, I am so grateful for each of you joining us tonight. Listen, I want you to take this opportunity, share this with your communities. Please send the word out tonight. Let them know YMA is live and in living color. We are live and in living color tonight. I'm making sure that I'm sharing this on my page. Share it on your page. Let everyone know that we are live tonight. We are excited, super uber duper, extremely excited about tonight's session. It is the third edition of one of the most talked about sessions that we've had since the history of IPYPU YMA, and that is the Healthy Me, Healthy Ministry session. And I promise you, is not going to be anything short of amazing tonight. I promise you it's going to be absolutely incredible. But I want you to take the next few moments right now to share this with your communities. Come on, please share it with the community. Let someone know, inbox them, DM somebody. I mean, email, call, text. I mean, do something. Send out an emergency call, whatever. Just do something. Get the word out. Get the word out and let them know that we are live right now. Because I don't want you to miss out on this awesome session. We have our regularly scheduled guests with this session here with us tonight. Though we might be a smaller in number, I promise you it's still going to be absolutely incredible tonight. As I said, I'm sending out the word. Also, I want to make sure that I share this and encourage as many as I can to join the session tonight. And I want you to do the same. Of course, I know this pandemic, which we'll talk about in a few moments, have kind of shifted things. So I know that as for me being 31, 32 in about 3 weeks, 30s is different. So, people start shutting down around this time, so I get it. But for those of you that are night owls and don't mind hanging tonight, let someone know this session is going to be absolutely incredible. It's going to be phenomenal. And you want to do everything you can to be a part of the information and the dialogue that's going to happen tonight. But please, as you're getting on, let us know that you're on. I see one of our YMA leadership team members, Pastor Liz Clark, is on. God bless you, Liz. If you're coming on, let us know that you're on. Let us know where you're coming from, where you're attending from. Let's start gathering. Let's start gathering tonight because this session is going to be incredible. As you know, we give honor. Let's do our thing. Let's follow protocol. We honor and give great reverence to our esteemed presiding bishop, Bishop Theodore Brooks, as well as to our first and second assistant presiding bishops, that is Bishop Mark Talbert, as well as Bishop Michael Hanna. We honor them, and of course we honor our entire board of bishops, as well as our auxiliary leaders, our department leaders who are phenomenal, which are our Madam President, Evangelist Freedom Morrison, as well as Pastor Kyron Shorter. We are so blessed to have them as our leaders for this season and time, and they have done nothing but remarkable work for the last, going on almost 4 years. Can you believe it? Oh my goodness, almost 4 years. But we are so grateful for you all, our IPYPU and YMA family, being a part tonight. And we hope that you'll be incredibly blessed by the information that will be shared. As you know, there'll be details coming. We're closing out this year, but we are also in preparation for next year. There are some exciting things that are coming ahead of us in next year that you want to kind of stay on the lookout for regarding details concerning those events that will happen. A lot of exciting things, should the Lord delay is coming, that we'll share with you, not just for IPYPU, but also for YMA. There's some things that we're planning and looking to do in the future. Also, we are excited because we are looking to return in person next year. in 2022 regarding our national convention, and it's going to be an incredible time. Should everything move in the right direction, we will be back in person. And I mean, it's amazing because we have not been in person since August of 2019. And so it'll be wonderful to see everyone face to face. We miss you all. And I'm so glad to see that God has kept you all during this pandemic. But certainly, we want to take full advantage of these opportunities that we are able to gather virtually until we're able to meet in person again. But I've given some time for those of you that will gather tonight on. Of course, we always have a great number of people that go back and watch our sessions even after they have occurred live. But I don't want to prolong the time. Our guests tonight, what can I say about these women? These women of God, hallelujah. I know one of them thought I was going to say women's, but I wasn't going to say women's. That's not how we do this over here in holiness. Thank you, Jesus. But these incredible women who are incredible professionals, they are ministers of the gospel, they are mothers, they are wives, they got it going on. They're just absolutely phenomenal. In many ways, they are super women. Literally, you're looking at two incredible super women that are represented on this live tonight. And I'm so grateful to look at them as family, consider them family, because that's who they are in my life personally. And I've known them for quite some time, and they are frequent guests when we've done this session in times past. And I'm so grateful that they were able to clear out their schedule for little old me and be a part once again. If you don't mind, I want to be a blessing. I want to be a blessing to our guests tonight. So I'm going to ask you to do me a huge favor. I'm going to ask you to do a huge favor. I want you to go to Cash App, $IPYPU. All right. I want you to go to Cash App, $IPYPU. And those of you that can, join me with a $25 seat. Now, I'm going to, of course, go over and beyond, but if you can, join me with $25. And in the memo section of the Cash App, before you give, if you don't mind, I need you just to do me a huge favor. I want you to put in the memo section, I have my note here. I want you to put hashtag YMA HM2, all right? Again, that's hashtag or pound sign YMA HM2. That will help us that as we bless our guests, we'll be able to allocate the funds appropriately so that we can be a blessing to them, okay? But certainly, let's be a part of the giving and do it that way. All right, let's get into the conversation. We have Dr. Malaika Brown, and we have Minister Lee Vincent, who are both licensed in psychology. They are able to speak on this subject professionally. They're able to give their credentials, just refresh us, because I don't want to get their titles wrong. But I want to give them the opportunity to speak to us. I'll go to Dr. Malaika Brown last, but I want to flip the script. I want to give the floor to Minister Lee Vincent first. Lee, talk to us. Welcome once again.
Hello. How is everybody doing? Hopefully everyone's doing well. I bring you greetings from Dallas, Texas, which is where we currently are living, which is a little different from the last time I was here. Big things are happening. So in terms of like credentials, what am I doing? What's going on? Like I said, I moved down to Dallas, Texas. I am working part-time private practice and part-time doing intensive outpatient program therapy, group therapy, part-time as well. I am an LPCA, which is a licensed professional counseling associate. I'm still getting my supervision hours. I'm so close. Oh, I'm so close. So that's kind of what's been going on. Family's been doing really well. Husband, kids, everyone is doing all right. We got school going. We got working from home and then working at the hospital. It's been a busy time in the house right now. But hey, we're excited to be here. I'm excited to be here and to share and to kind of have this dialogue about something that is really, really relevant. Everyone's kind of going through in terms of just pandemic and its effects and kind of getting back into the swing of things and going back and then shutting back down and all the things. It's a lot happening. So I'm excited that we're bringing this subject to light and how this is impacting us both mentally, physically, spiritually, all the different things. So I'm just excited. I'm honored to be here among such great and distinguished people. I'm just happy to be in the room, like I said before. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, we're glad to have you in the room, and we're delighted that you would take time to be with us once again. And we're excited about everything God's doing in your life and your contributions to this conversation, which is going to be phenomenal. Dr. Malaika Brown, God bless you, ma'am. So glad to have you.
Well, I am in sunny Southern California for all those in the Midwest and the East that are dealing with real fall weather. Fall out here is 95, 100 degrees. So like literally it was 100 degrees yesterday. So pray for us out here because this weather can be exhausting sometimes. But I love it. Cali native, this is what I know. I am a clinical psychologist in the state of California. I'm also an associate professor of psychology, so I have to balance between being a teacher and also my client roster, which it seems like during this pandemic has actually increased. I've had to turn people away because of just the needs that have been highlighted because of us being isolated from each other and not being able to do the normal things that we're used to doing, things that we took for granted. And so this is a necessary conversation. We need to have this, if not quarterly, at least twice a year. Like this is something that needs to be talked about. Being a pastor's kid, I have a soft spot for leaders in any capacity, whether you're a minister, whether you're in administrative leadership at the church, whether you work as a leader professionally in an industry. We don't take care of ourselves. And so this is necessary for us to get back to understanding that self-care is not selfish. If you're pouring out, your pitcher has to be replenished. And so I'm just honored to be here again for another session and have another opportunity to speak. I forgot about my family. It's like I got so much stuff going on. So yes, I'm a wife and I have 3 adult children. So they got school, but that's not my issue. Like at this point, you need to figure that out on your own.
I'm not jealous. You're jealous.
No, I'm really not. It's nice over here. It really is. My baby is 20, so I'm just like living it up over on this side. And then I still work in ministry at the church. My mother is my pastor now, so still assisting her in her capacity with that. And then on top of that, I had the nerve to decide that I wanted to be Greek. And almost 2 years ago, I decided to become a member of Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated, which is like another job with the community work that we do and all those different things. So it's a lot. So I have to talk to myself during this session as well, because I have to remind myself of taking time to be healthy and replenish and actually have self-care as a part of my plan. So I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad to have you a part of this conversation, Dr. Malaika, and excited about even the information that you will contribute. Listen, everyone that is watching, I hope you see why this session is so important. And I don't feel, I feel no more comfortable having this conversation than I would with having it with these 2 individuals who I know can speak real truth to this subject. Of course, as you know, this session is Healthy Me, Healthy Ministry, because we understand, though we are involved in ministry, and both Dr. Malaika and Minister Lee hit on it very, very specifically and truthfully, any area of ministry you may be involved with beyond just preaching, but any form of leadership, there are some critical areas that you have to really confront and address as you navigate through these spaces. Some of which we're going to talk about. One area that we're really going to touch on, and that is boundaries and how to establish healthy boundaries. But that's going to kind of open up the can a little bit. But before we get there, let's talk about pivoting. I know pivot for the last 2 years has now become this operative word that so many have been utilizing. And sometimes people just use it because it's trendy, but not all of us really truly understand what it means to pivot. And I want to kind of touch on what does that mean, especially considering the pandemic, because for some of us, we've had to pivot and even recognize that we were pivoting. And then there are those of us who have been dealing with inner frustration, and that is caused by us not being willing to pivot, whether we know how to articulate it as that or not. But I want to talk about that. What does it mean to pivot? Pivot mentally, pivot internally, emotionally, spiritually, professionally, while navigating through this pandemic? And what are some of the challenges and rewards that come with pivoting? Anyone can take it. Anyone can take it. I just want to go ahead and start off with that.
I'll start. I approached this. So I'm the superintendent for our Christian education department at our church. Mm-hmm. And so I actually was teaching on what ministry looks like post-pandemic. And part of that is changing our mentality on how we approach ministry in general, what we're expecting from the building, what we're expecting from the ministry, and understanding that things are not going to go back to how they were prior to January, or we'll say March of 2020 was when things really hit. It won't go back. So for me, pivoting is being able to adjust your mentality around the goal, but not the goal. So the goals will stay the same, but your approach will have to be adjusted. My father, the late Bishop Michael Garrett, he was one that he would give you a task. He would say, this is what I want done. And then you would go to him and say, well, what do you want me to do? What are these steps? And he would say, that's not my place to tell you. This is the goal. How do you get to the goal? Because I may tell you to do it and you try to approach it from that aspect, and it doesn't work for you trying to do what I would do to get to that goal. So we have to look at this goal never changes. So what is your goal in your ministry or your profession, your career, whatever it may be? That will never change, but understand that you're going to have to change your mindset, the mechanisms, the behaviors that you have connected to how you're getting to that. So the pandemic forced our hand. It forced pastors to be more technologically savvy. A lot of churches had no online presence prior to that. A lot of us had no online presence with our ministries, our personal individual ministries. It forced us to have to do that. So that means that you can't go back to that old mentality. You can't go back to that, I wish we were in Egypt mentality that we sometimes get because it was comfortable. So we have to understand the goal never changes. The goal is the same. The method, the mechanisms, the mindset is going to have to adjust based on the circumstances. But if you keep the goal in mind, you will be able to get to the finish line, because that's the thing that drives you. That's the thing that keeps you going when it gets tough. That's the thing that gets you up every morning, is that goal, is that mission, is that vision, whatever you want to call it. But you have to change your mindset and the mechanisms on how you're doing what you're doing.
Wow. Minister Lee, jump on in. Jump right on in.
Yeah, I just, when you said that and you asked about pivoting, it kind of sparked this Dr. Phil line that I kind of remember, is this idea that necessity is kind of the catalyst to change. And I think that the pandemic really brought out that fact that we were kind of operating as usual, kind of just in that rigmarole. This is what we do. This is how we do things. And pandemic caused us to really look and assess how are we doing things, and is this really working for us? And that's spiritually, that's physically in our health, that is mentally in our mental health. This caused everyone to stop and say, whoa, I don't know if this is really, if I'm really okay. I don't even know if this is really working. I really don't even know what I'm doing right now. I need to figure out what's happening. And they started, I think we all started to recognize this need to kind of shift somehow, to pivot, right? We need something to change. The way that things are really aren't satisfying us. I mean, there are so many people who have changed careers in the course of this pandemic, so many people that otherwise would not have looked to mental health care and recognizing that they were mentally not okay, that are now seeking therapeutic services. And I think a lot of us, you know, spiritually had to see, is going to church, am I going to church to go to church? And I think that that's my spiritual connection to God. And then I'm realizing that maybe my relationship isn't as strong as I thought it was, because as soon as I got out of church, I kind of let go of God, or I realized that God wasn't as present in my life. And so I think that the pandemic, while it has its devastating effects, obviously, it's really kind of caused us all to reflect and look at what's really going on with us, and then seeing there are things I need to change if I'm really going to be living this abundant life that I thought I was living before, but I really wasn't. I'm really not quite there. And it's caused all of us to have to make this shift and see, am I going to keep the status quo? Am I going to keep doing doing things the way I did them before? Or am I going to pivot? Am I going to shift and change and evolve?
Wow, you all are tapping into something that's very heavy, because the conversation as it's evolving naturally, it's getting into an area that sometimes is very tender, for people to discuss, because of what we do understand about this pandemic. As you mentioned, it has, Lee, as you mentioned, it has been very devastating. Dr. Malik, you of course referred to the trauma aspect, and both of you all have touched on this. But you all have also brought out another side, which gets to really the point of the pivot that I wanted to address. This pandemic has challenged us also. While there's been much devastation, we cannot ignore that it has also challenged us to really make necessary adjustments for us to evolve, for us to grow, because certain things that we were doing really, whether we realize it or not, caused us maybe to become stagnant. But that jolt that came from the pandemic forced us to quickly shift, or, you know, if we didn't shift, we were risking becoming extinct in some ways. And that's really the area that many don't always like to talk about, but it is highly true. And I want to go into this a little bit more. Before I do, though, I have to pause real quickly and welcome my dear brother who has joined us on tonight. We are so grateful to have the indubitable, the indomitable, in the words of Bishop Noel Jones, illustrious Dr. Rayvan Key on. Dr. Ray, how you doing, man? So good to see you.
I am doing better.
Good.
Good.
So glad to see you, man. We've been praying for you.
Thank
And
you.
just to see your face tonight, I am so grateful, that God is truly, truly, truly smiling on you continually. And know that we as your family are fully standing with you and supporting you. But we're just so glad that there was no pressure. Now, listen, y'all, I didn't pressure anyone to be on tonight, but out of their heart, they made the sacrifice and commitment to be here. And I am so grateful for all of you all being here. Dr. Ray, thank you so much, sir.
No problem. Good
Absolutely.
to see everybody. Dr. Brown, Minister Vincent.
How you doing, sir? Good
How
to
are
see you.
you? Good to see you.
Yes,
See you.
good to see you all.
Absolutely.
I know these two, if any two people can hold it down, these two can hold it down. They're experts.
Listen, you're right about it. You're right about it. But you are too. You are too. So I'm glad just to be facilitating the conversation. That's all I'm doing.
Which you do well.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
I try.
My mom loves when you're moderating a panel discussion.
Oh, I appreciate it.
She's like, you're so animated.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. You know, we love your mom, man. We love Mother Key. So we're grateful. So we're getting into this discussion and topic about pivoting and making the necessary adjustments and what this pandemic has done for us in that regard to make adjustments. And I posed the question about what challenges and rewards, I guess for the lack of a better term, rewards, what good has come about from it, as well as the negative. Dr. Ray, just take a brief moment and speak to that. From what you've assessed and been able to observe regarding the pandemic and the pivoting that we've had to do, how has that impacted people and maybe even you personally?
Mm-hmm. When I think of pivoting, I think of basketball.
Okay.
I think of just the quick movement. Like pivoting is something that has to be done quickly. You have one foot on the ground, but you change direction quickly to to either shake your opponent and cause him or her to think that you're going one direction, but you're going another. So that you can make the basket, make the goal. I heard Dr. Malaika talk about the goal. That's what it's about, and I think the pandemic has caused many of us to pivot, to have to adjust quickly.
Wow.
And many of us are not quick adjusters. It takes us time to adjust. We like to adjust in a slow way. We like to have all of our eggs, lined up, all of everything lined up, all of our ducks lined up.
Yes, sir.
And when it comes to pivoting, you can't pivot slowly.
Wow.
You need to pivot quickly. And I think the rewards that we've received from pivoting quickly is to know that we're going to be all right. I mean, it's a confidence booster.
Wow.
So, I think we have greater confidence that we're going to be all right, regardless to what happens to us or in our lives.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So pivoting quickly, allows us to realize that, allows us to really become comfortable with not having everything in order before we move. Sometimes God has to cause us to move and we don't have everything in order. He wants us to just pivot and go another direction.
Wow.
And I think the pandemic has made us as the church experts at going another direction without having everything, every T crossed and every I dotted.
Absolutely. And Dr. Key, you're dropping some really heavy nuggets right here, because essentially one of the defining characteristics of pivoting is having to make those quick adjustments. And you're absolutely right that for many of us in the church involved in any aspect of leadership and ministry, we've had to make those quick adjustments in order to meet the need, because at the end of the day, what we've discovered is there's still a need. People are still relying on God. They're still relying on faith. They're still relying on the church. And the only way really to still meet that need, we've had to adjust our presentation of the gospel. And it's amazing because this is not stuff that we haven't talked about before. We've talked about, it ain't about changing the message. It's about, sometimes you got to change the method. We've been saying it. But when something requires us to make that change because we've settled in one change and not ready to move with another change, because technology is constantly advancing. Every 10 years and the way time is moving now, it seems like every 5 or 3 years, something new is happening. I mean, you can just look at that with Apple. Apple's releasing a new product. Once I got a phone, I'm like,
every
y'all
year.
already got another, what?
Every year.
every year. It's like, what? So these adjustments we're having to make and adapt very quickly. But one of the things that I hope the church is not beginning. I hate using certain terms because it's just so cliches and it's actually sometimes inaccurate. But one of the things that I hope that we're coming to really discover more of, and I speak of the church collectively at large, is God really moves in the agileness of ministry, or the agility, the flexibility, that adaptability, becoming all things to all men that I may win some. Really embracing that philosophy that Paul was teaching more, so that we don't get so locked in a mode and think that God is only limited to one area, but we're able to maneuver and adjust. Mm-hmm. Now, let's keep this going. Let's build upon this for a little bit, because we're talking about pivoting, but if we take it another step forward, I think one of the other areas that we face challenges in when dealing with pivoting is social pressure. And I want to kind of tackle this a little bit, social pressure, because sometimes what I find to be, and I'm guilty of it myself, I find to be an impending challenge for people is they see someone else making a quick adjustment in an area. And I'll narrow it down. We're talking about ministry, but we can also talk about it from a professional and career side. But we see people who are able to be creative and innovative and maybe try to do something that others are not doing. And then it becomes that social pressure that we feel, oh, I gotta do it this way, because I see the likes and the hearts and the comments and the shares, and I see everybody jumping on board and celebrating what this person is doing, and I feel so far behind. I feel like I'm not up to par. And there's this social pressure to keep up with the Joneses instead of really utilizing the space you've been given, optimize it to the best of your ability, and really hone in on your creativity versus trying to mirror what someone else is doing. I want to talk about this. Let's dive into this a little bit more, and I want to hear your thoughts on this area of social pressure. Anybody, I want to give you the floor. Actually, Minister Lee, let's start with you.
I had a feeling you were going to call on me. And I wasn't going to be like, I don't know. So what came to my mind is that if you feel social pressure and you're feeling like you can't keep up or you aren't keeping up, sometimes that's just good feedback to accept. Like, accept that, man, things are moving faster than the pace I'm able to do. My capacity is not to keep up with that. So let me just kind of accept that reality and stay in my lane and let those that can run. And if I'm jogging, I'm going to go ahead and get on the inside lane and I'm going to jog it on out. And that can be okay. Like, there are so many lanes in terms of ministry that are available, that just because you aren't on the same path as others doesn't mean that you aren't relevant or effective in your lane. And that can be okay. If this whole technology era and all these things are kind of, maybe sweeping some of the older saints, if you will, okay, that's okay, honey. Log on and do what you can do, and let some of these young folks go ahead and begin to take that place. That's kind of, what we should see, like this level of generativity. Am I saying that right? I think I'm saying that. Generativity. Like, let you and your wisdom grow the next generation so that they can take the mantle and keep going. And I feel like pandemic has kind of created this opportunity for those that otherwise might not have gotten that opportunity to really shine and show what they're made of and step up to the challenge. And then those that can't keep up, so to speak, or feel the pressure to keep up with the Joneses, maybe that's, again, your turn to see that it's time to pivot. And maybe it's not my turn to be in the limelight, but to teach and mentor and coach and push that next generation so that this thing can propel. So I don't think it has to be negative if the feedback that you are feeling or getting is that I'm not keeping up with the Joneses. People aren't liking what I'm doing. Okay, well then maybe that's your clue that might not be the lane for you, and that is okay.
Wow. Oh my goodness, Dr. Ray, I want you to. I know Dr. Malika. I know you're burning.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna
I
save you
am
for
burning.
last, because
Okay.
but I want Dr. Ray to jump in here. I want you. What you got to say, sir? I want to hear your heart.
I'm thinking about authenticity,
Yes.
you know,
That's what I was
and
thinking too.
Dr. Malika sent it over here. She sent it over
I
here.
did. I sent it.
Sent it
I
over
sent it.
here. I'm thinking about
Ah,
authenticity because every pivot is not, I mean, your pivot has to be authentic.
mm,
There has to be a reason why you're pivoting and the direction that you're pivoting. And that is determined by the situation and the need in the moment. You know, the pandemic has hit people in different ways. So, you know, I'm not going to pivot like somebody else has pivoted, you know, and keeping up with the Joneses, that's just immature. You know, we need to get out, we need to get away from trying to meet social pressure because people will have you doing all types of things, you know, and you will lose your identity in the process. You will no longer be authentic, you know. So authenticity is the it factor.
Mhm.
wow.
It's the it factor. How you pivot is going to is going to set you up for the future. If you pivot, trying to pivot like someone else, you could be setting yourself up for a future that's not meant for you. Like Minister Vincent was saying, you know, you're going to have to accept some things and be like, that's not me. And I'm not going to try to be anybody else but me. Can't nobody beat you being you.
Yep.
You know, so if your right leg is strong, you know, and that's the one that's on the ground, you know, when you pivot with your left leg, you know. But if you're trying to pivot like a left-legged person, if that's even a thing, you know, I'm left-legged.
Yes, sir.
You know, you're gonna hurt yourself
And break your ankle.
and
Wow.
break your
Right.
ankle. Yeah.
And that's
You might run
often.
right into authenticity. You might run right into the enemy if you pivot in an inauthentic way.
Good God Almighty. Woo, Dr. Malika, come right on into this. Come on right on into this.
They took it all. So I was gonna go with the self-awareness and being authentically who you are.
Yes.
The reactions that people are getting that we're seeing is them being authentically who they are.
Right.
And we're thinking that we have to copy what they're doing. If we're copying anything, we're copying being authentically you. Like that's what you can copy and paste. If you need to copy and paste something, copy, be who you are. But I think part of the issue is that in the church, because don't get offended, y'all, the mask we wear, especially if you grew up in the church, half the time we don't know who we are. We know the roles we play, we know the positions we hold, we know what we're supposed to do at this point of the service and what's acceptable for this type of service and this thing that's happening, but we don't really know who we are. So when you know who you are, you don't feel the need to keep up with anybody else because you're so self-aware and secure in your identity that you're working to be a better version of you. So who you're competing with is the past versions of you. You don't want to be the same person you were 6 months ago. You don't want to be the same person you were 5 years ago. Like you're trying to be a better Cameron. You're trying to be a better Malika, a better Lee, a better Ray. Like that's what your competition should be. And just because you can do something, like you have the ability to do it, does not mean that you should. And that's a part of self-awareness. There's a lot of things that we probably, because we've grown up in church, we've learned how to do skill-wise because of us having to do. It doesn't mean that that's what you're called to do. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And you need to figure out what aligns with your purpose. What is your why? Now, this is one of the things people are like, those Greek organizations, this is what I learned by joining the sorority. They asked me from the jump, what is your why? Why are you here? Because that's what's going to keep you through all the adversity, when we get on your nerves, when you're ready to give up. Your why is the one thing, the one thread that you hang on to that will keep you going when stuff starts to shift and change or not go favorably for you. What is your why in your ministry? What is your why in your career goals? What is your why with your family goals? What is your why with your personal goals? Those whys should align in some kind of capacity. And if you hold on to that, you don't feel like you have to compete, because you're like, okay, well, this is my why. That's glamorous, that's shiny, that's pretty, that's cool, but that's not me, because it doesn't align with what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think when you get that mentality, I love social media. Like, I literally go on there to be entertained. I love memes. I love videos. TikTok is my thing. Like, the stuff makes me laugh. But I'm not saying, I've got a TikTok account. I have never posted anything on TikTok. I have Snapchat, never done nothing on Snapchat. Like, I literally have it because at some point you probably should have it. I have kids, so that's the other reason I try to follow them on stuff. But I don't feel the pressure to have a presence there, because for me, it doesn't align with my why right now. Like, I haven't figured out how it aligns with what I know my goals are. And everything that you are involved in should align to your why. Nothing should be extraneous stuff just because you can participate. So if I'm in help ministry at my church, or if I'm in education, if you look at what I do at my church outside of music ministry, everything I do aligns with what I do professionally in some capacity. I'm over Christian education. I teach professionally, right? I work the altar. I'm a minister. I'm also a psychologist. Like, this stuff lines up together. I'm in a Greek organization that's community minded. Again, help ministry. This stuff lines up. And when you know what your why is, when you know why you're here, everything lines up in layers. And you probably won't even notice until you start going back looking at how you're involved in different things. You're like, oh, wait, that's just an offshoot of this. That's just an offshoot of that. That's when you have come into yourself, and nothing can shake you. I don't believe in keeping up with the Joneses. I don't know who these Jones people are, but they're not important in my life. I don't have time. I struggle just trying to be me and be a whole Malaika, let alone trying to keep up with a bunch of other people. I don't have the time.
And that's not sustainable. Like,
it's not.
To try to do that is not sustainable. You can attempt to participate in those things, but if that is not really what you are supposed to do, it doesn't align with who you are authentically, it will not be sustainable. You will crash and burn.
It's exhausting.
It's exhausting.
It'll set you up for depression, definitely.
Yes.
You know, you shouldn't give other people, you shouldn't give the Joneses that much control over your life. That every time they move, you got to move. Every time they do something, you have to do it. You have to do it too. No, they don't deserve that much control.
Wow.
Nope.
The moment you get to the place where you can't do what they're doing, it's going to open the door for depression and anxiety.
Yep.
I for those of you that are watching, I really, really hope that you're grabbing everything that this session is offering. And whether you believe it or not, we have roughly maybe 17 or 16 more minutes left. And I'm just, or less than that, my bad. I am just so full already with what's being shared. And this information, listen, you all, people will pay hundreds of dollars just to receive the information that is being given to you. And that's why I want to take this opportunity. For those of you that can join me, those of you that are watching, at least $25. What I want you to do is go to Cash App, $IPYPU. And I want you to put in the notes section, when you give your 25, just put in the notes section, hashtag YMA HM, the number two. And that way, that will help us to allocate the funds properly. I am committed to blessing our guests with something, and I need you to help me to do that. They don't ask for anything, but I do not want to disrespect their gifting and their commitment and sacrifice and willingness to be a part of this session by not doing something for them. All right. So I'm asking all of you, if you can, please join me. Let's be a blessing. There's so much that has been talked about already with the authenticity and understanding your why, and how that what you do must align with your why or your purpose. That makes so much sense. Keeping up with the Joneses, in doing so, knowing that you're going to, if once you discover that you'll fail, leads to depression. Understanding that it's pointless to do so, because you're literally doing violence towards your own creativity, your uniqueness, by trying to mirror what someone else is doing. It gets back to something that Pastor Kyron Shorter actually blew me away with. A very simple truth, but very profound. We talk about Jesus and how he was a game changer and a revolutionary, things of that nature. I mean, he brought in newness, and it is not to discredit that fact. What he did do was it was innovative for that time. It was creative. It was game changing. It was new for that day. However, all Jesus really mastered doing or being was himself. That's it. You know, as much as we look at him as a game changer, he was just authentically himself. And when Pastor Shorter spoke to that, it literally just blew everything away, because sometimes I feel for those in my generation, and I'm including myself, we want to be the it person. We want to be the innovator. We want to be, I'm the originator. I'm the originator. It started with me. I'm the godfather. I'm the godmother. It all started. I birthed this. We just want to be the genesis of whatever, not realizing that we'll spend so much time trying to be the first coming of something, but fail at just really discovering who we are and really developing that reality about our lives. And so what you all are sharing really is helping all of us to see that if we would focus on really discovering who we are, which is best achieved really through our relationship with God, and asking him to help us to see who we are. And as he shows us himself in his presence, he also reveals to us more of who we are. Then we can really develop that area and become the best version of ourselves. Now, in this process of working, developing, strategizing, creating, doing, the doing process, the working process, can become extremely exhausting. And we'll become so committed because of the social pressure, feeling like we got to work overtime or do double time, triple time, quadruple time to catch up with folk. Or we found our lane, we're working our lane, but we don't know how to say no in that process as well. This now brings us, we've talked about pivoting, we've talked about social pressure, but let's talk about boundaries now. Not all of us, and I think I'm being a little generous with saying not all of us, a lot of us really don't have healthy boundaries. And I don't want to offend anybody, because really a lot of it could be contributed to many of us not even knowing how to establish healthy boundaries. But this area has created a lot of dilemmas for people, challenges, and maybe even moments of trauma in their lives. Let's talk about healthy boundaries and how to really establish healthy boundaries. And then I think this will also kind of tie in coping mechanisms to a degree, because it's knowing what are good methods of detoxing yourself mentally, emotionally, spiritually, how to find healthy outlets and things of nature. I think all of that is kind of intertwined in the subject. So I want to spend the next few final moments dealing with healthy boundaries and how to establish healthy practices. Dr. Malaika, you were the last time. So let's begin with Dr. Malaika. Let's start with you.
I would say for me, we overcommit a lot. So I would start with not overcommitting. I would rather undercommit and deliver more than what I have put out there that I'm going to do than to put all this grand stuff out there and not have the capacity fulfilling all of what I said in a plan. So I used to be that person. Again, when you grow up in church, you kind of get into the habit of you do because you can, as opposed to whether or not that's healthy for you to do all the different things that you're doing. And so I would say yes to everything. I would say, okay, I'll be at the church for this, I'll be at the church for that, and I'll still work my job, and I'll still do this. And I found myself taking those same habits and mentalities into the workforce. So I would volunteer for things, I would stay late, I would be on committees, I would do all this different stuff and not understand why I was always exhausted, or why I was not really giving quality me to all the different tasks that I was engaged in. And so the pandemic, crazy enough, is what really forced me to have a hard line. Because when you're virtual in your work, people think that they have access to you 24/7. So that means that if it's coming in and you don't have a boundary with yourself, you'll answer the email, you'll answer the text message, you'll answer the call. I posted a meme and I was being funny, and it said something about people that put their phone on do not disturb when they go to sleep, don't care about other people. And then the comment was like, well, we're not the Avengers, call the cops. I was kind of serious because it's like, I need to sleep. And I can't be accessible all hours of the day and night. I already have issues sleeping as it is. I don't need to now be accessible to you to call me in your crisis. It's like, there's got to be other people available or other methods available. And we have to be okay with it not being us. So we have all kinds of stuff at our church. And I live geographically, like it takes me a minimum of 30 minutes driving, and I drive crazy. So I'm gonna just tell y'all that 30 minutes is really, it takes longer than that to get to the church. So if I commit to all this stuff in the building, I'm gonna burn myself out because I have to get there. That's a whole process, and then do whatever task it is. So I only commit to the things that I know feasibly I can do. Sundays, I know I'm at church at the crack of dawn for Sunday school. So I'm at church from Sunday school till church gets out. I commit to that every week. And throughout the entire pandemic, I have not missed a Sunday yet. Like, that is the commitment I know I can keep. Outside of that, during the week is challenging because I still have clients, I still have to teach classes. So when I do have time and I can have notice, I can schedule myself. I got a calendar that I live by. It's like my other Bible. I schedule it so that I don't burn myself out trying to do that. And I have to stick to the boundaries I set. And people will respect you for when you say, I can't do it, as long as when you say you can do it, you show up and you give your best when you're there. People will accept your no if your yes is actually a yes they can depend on. And they know that you're going to come with your best when you do say yes. Because if you say yes to everything and you give crap to most of it, they probably want you to say no.
Wow. I've never looked at it that way. We don't teach.
Because they know when you show up, they know you're going to bring it because you don't have a lot of time, but you give excellence to what you do. So they know if you're saying yes, you're going to bring the best you have to bring to whatever that may be.
You just, oh my goodness. So they will appreciate the no because they know when you say yes, you're at least able to give that 100%. It's you're not going to half step. You will commit.
No.
Y'all watching. I hope y'all really are catching. Oh my goodness, because this stuff right here, I'm telling you, Minister Lee, I feel you. Come on in this because you're about to add to this, and we're gonna save Dr. Ray for last. But mentally, I want you to just jump on in this because I know you're going to take this somewhere. Just go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I love what Dr. Malika said. Quality over quantity. That's a whole nother session.
Yes, it is.
But I think that it's important to understand why we should have healthy boundaries, or at least the impact of what happens when we don't. And at least in terms of like ministry or kind of overcommitting, things of that nature, it leads us to feel exploited or violated. That's really the purpose of having a boundary, is so that I can preserve myself and not be exploited or violated. And so we have to remember that that's what we're really trying to do and trying to establish with this healthy boundary. And we have to realize that there are levels to this thing too. If we are too rigid in our boundaries, then that means we're not allowing anything good to get in either. So it's really about the balance of a boundary, that's really the important part, because we're supposed to be giving of our gifts and talents. So we need to make sure that we're not so rigid that now we're kind of squandering this gift and talent that I have, but also our boundaries aren't so loose and open that now I feel like I am just constantly pouring out of myself and can or kind of refill, or I'm getting violated and exploited. I'm just getting used up. So it's really about doing that self-analysis and seeing what is my capacity and what am I willing to do? How far am I willing to go? Like Dr. Malika said, she's willing to commit every Sunday. I'm showing up and I will be there. And that might be her capacity. And in times she might stretch and she might do more. And there are times when she's got to say, you know what? Not this time. And I'm going to have to say no. And that's going to have to be okay, so that I don't feel violated or exploited, so that I maintain my value. I have to be able to maintain my own level of value, and to say that I value myself enough to say no to this is the first key in self-care. Genuinely, is to be able to know what you're worth and be able to say, I can say no, and that's going to have to be okay, because it's preserving me. It's keeping me from feeling a way that's going to, take me outside of myself. To feel violated or exploited is a horrible feeling. It feels disgusting. It feels gross. It feels like I'm undervalued, all of these things. And that's not what ministry is supposed to be about. I don't think that's the intent of church, is to exploit and violate. And so if that's going to be the case, then it's about everybody kind of adjusting and shifting the way that we look at that and looking at our boundaries, right? I think that we can overcorrect and then I'm not going to do anything for church. I don't want to do nothing. No. And now you're not giving. And now it's all stored up in you, and now you're not even operating anymore. So what are we really doing here? And it's about that assessment and seeing, how can I respect myself, establish these healthy boundaries, and be able to really be operational in that.
Amazing. The balance of boundaries.
Yeah.
Wow. Even boundaries, setting boundaries have to have a balance. Oh my goodness. Dr. Ray, come on in here, sir. Come on.
I appreciate what's been said already by Dr. Malaika and Minister Vincent. I think that when it comes to boundaries, you have to know and understand your limitations and be clear on what you're going to tolerate versus what you're not going to tolerate.
Yes, sir.
That's self-respect, that's self-care. And setting those boundaries are important, because if you allow yourself to be violated by others, you're not gonna be good at respecting your own boundaries.
Absolutely.
You're gonna violate yourself. We come from a culture, a church culture and a Black culture where saying no is not encouraged. If we're speaking to an adult and there's a power differential, whatever they ask us, we're going to say yes. And
the truth.
Some of the older people, they're not going to accept your no. You know, they're going to be
They
like,
won't.
oh, they're going to be like, no, I know you're not going to tell me no. I need you to do this. They're already preemptively cut you down. You know, they're like, I know you're not going to tell me no. I need you to do this for me. Are you going to be here on Tuesday night knowing you got a paper due on Wednesday
Oh my God.
or a test on Wednesday? You know, I need you to MC, you know, this service. And they'll be there all day, all night in church, you know, and you'll get home because you can't say no to mother such and such, you know, because you feel like you're being disrespectful or somehow you're not pleasing God, you know, and you won't respect your limitation. You know, you are limited in terms of what time you have. If you've got a paper due the next day and you haven't started writing it yet.
Absolutely.
And you have to understand that your limitations are not based upon what people think your limitations are. You know, some people think that they can tell you what your limitations are. You know, and you have to know your limitations. Otherwise, people will have you doing things that you don't have the capacity for.
Wow. Wow.
And you will feel exploited. You will feel used. You will feel like if you don't do well on that paper, it was because of that. It'll lead to a seed of bitterness towards the church and God's people.
Wow, that's good.
And people in authority. You don't want that to happen because you're expecting other people to be considerate. I tell my clients all the time, you can't expect the other people to be considerate of you.
Wow.
When they want what they want, they're going to ask you for what they want, and they're going to expect you to do it. You know, you can't expect them to be considerate of you. You have to be considerate of yourself and teach them how to be considerate of you.
There you go.
Yep.
Teach them.
people how to treat you.
Oh my
Teach people how to
goodness.
treat you by saying, no, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that to myself. Or
Wow.
I'm not going to overwhelm myself with this task, you know?
Dr. Kate, Mr. Lee, Dr. Malaika, all I can say is wow. Wow, wow, wow. If I was to sum up everything that has been said, especially if we directly, there it is, correlated to church and ministry, it is okay to recognize that I've said yes to the Lord. I've given God my yes, Lord. But I'm not going to make you feel as though me saying yes to you doesn't equate me saying yes to the Lord. That's not how this works. He's got my yes, Lord. I said yes, Lord, to him a long time ago. But my yes, Lord, don't mean I got to say yes to you. And I think
God knows your capacity.
Know your capacity.
God knows.
He created you.
God
created you. So you can't tell no to God.
Absolutely.
Because God already knows your capacity. He knows what you can do, what you can handle.
He created us. He knows. And so we have to now, we're in the process of discovering our capacity and having, we need to know it. We need to know it because as Minister Lee said it earlier, the other side to the balance of boundaries is that people will exploit if you don't set those healthy parameters in place. As Dr. Malaika said, you got to know your capacity, what you can do. Set that early, knowing how you know, and knowing that about yourself, then you know that when you do say no, people will embrace it because when you do say yes, you're able to give your 100%.
And healthy people respect healthy boundaries.
Healthy people.
If you have healthy boundaries, you will respect someone else's. So likely if someone is exploiting your boundaries, that might mean that they also need to look at their own and how do they keep their own boundaries.
Oh my gosh. There it is. There's nothing more else to be said. Listen, y'all, if you missed tonight's session, you got to go back and watch it. I'm sorry. You got to go back and watch this from start to finish because the information tonight is priceless. I didn't know if Dr. Key was going to make it on. He came right in, jumped right into the saddle, knocked everything out. Minister Lee, Dr. Malaika, I mean, phenomenal insight. And I want to put in a plug. Certainly, they don't mind doing work and helping you out, but you're gonna pay. You gonna pay if you. But they are great resources. I want to say that it's worth it, because I have literally sat and talked to all three of them personally myself, and they helped me in some very difficult times in my life. And I promise you, if you go to them for consultations or what have you, your life will be transformed forever. But don't overwhelm them. Don't overwhelm them. But certainly, they are phenomenal resources that are in the body of Christ. But I hope all of you have been blessed. Again, do me a favor tonight. So let's be a blessing. Just go to Cash App, $IPYPU, put it in the note or the memo section as you give your $25. Hashtag YMA HM, the number 2. Hashtag YMA HM, the number 2. Just put that there so we'll know how to allocate the funds. We want to bless our speakers tonight. All right. We love each of you. Thank you for joining us for our download session. And we have more news coming about next month. We're going to have another stellar session next month, and it's just going to be a blessing. You don't want to miss out on it. But certainly, we love you. Have a blessed rest of the week. We'll see you soon. God bless. Another stellar session.